Good afternoon. Happy Sunday. Hope everyone's doing well. It is time to do what we always do, and that is to prep for the week ahead. And as always, we like to start with the economic calendar and then work our way down from there into the main ETFs and the sectors and any interesting setups from there. But without further ado, let's take a quick peek at the economic calendar from last week. As you can see, last week it was all about the inflation data. We had PPI come in at minus 0.1% versus 0.3%. The prior reading was 0.7%. The main weakness here within the PPI was energy. And then we had our PPI, which came in at 2.9% versus 2.9%, slightly in line. Nothing too crazy in the reports overall, but yeah, CPI continues to be driven by food and shelter, all that. Although some of those we could argue that a lot of the shelter is finally starting to see some sort of relaxation, although there's still a long ways to go. Now, when it comes to this upcoming week, it is all about the Fed, Jerome Powell, the rate decision. Yeah, it's going to be a big week on Wednesday mainly. We do get our rate decision, which the market is anticipating a 25 basis point rate cut, as you can see here. And in fact, if we look at the probabilities for the entire year, let me zoom in here for you. We can see that we are expecting a 25 basis point rate cut for this upcoming meeting. We're also expecting another rate cut in the October meeting, and we are also expecting a rate cut for the December. Now, these are the current odds. These can fluctuate and change day to day, so the longer out could be still questionable, but 81% and 76% is still pretty up there as far as the odds go for a potential rate cut. So yeah, 3 possible rate cuts going into the end of the year is pretty interesting. The labor market has been showing weakness, and of course we're going to get that, battle with, strong economy, but jobs are weakening, possibly persistent inflation. You get the questions of stagflation. I understand that's a totally different conversation for later that we won't address in this video, but just know that there's a lot of evidence out there that we are getting that possible situation where, maybe we should be discussing that a little bit more. But yeah, Wednesday is a big day. We'll see what Powell has to say. Not only do we get the rate decision, we also get updated economic projections. We get the updated dot plot and so forth. So it's going to be a very big day on Wednesday. Just be very, very mindful about what's going on. If you're not paying attention, you should be. So Wednesday is your main focus day. Now let's go ahead and jump into the charts here. As you can see, the SPY is doing pretty well. When Friday we had a pretty bleh day. It was a small range, and we gapped up a little bit and then pulled back in. A little bit of this shooter doji candle. But when we look at the overall broader picture, I mean, this is still bullish. Even when we look at the 30-minute chart here, as you can see with the cloud, you can see that we are still trading above it. No direct threat to weakness. We could interpret this daily candle as some signs of weakness in general, but look, nothing's broken here, right? Trend is good, structure is good, momentum maybe a little bit cooled on the smaller time frames, but hey, it's still in a bullish uptrend, so nothing too crazy going on. Qs had a pretty solid day on Friday, also looks pretty good. Definitely played some catch up like we mentioned last week. Now, we did see some of that rotation on Friday. We had a little bit of weakness within the Dow and the Russell, and we saw stronger moves within tech and some of the semiconductors. And yeah, you're just seeing that here on the daily chart, and we can confirm that on the 30-minute chart. This is your smaller time frame, structure and momentum, and it is holding up. You had the twist back here on Wednesday, retested the cloud on Friday, and then again last week we had another retest and survived and pushed into new all-time highs. So the Qs continue to look pretty good here. Let's go to the daily chart. We can also see here on the Dow broke out into fresh all-time highs on Thursday after all the inflation data. We had that inside down bar on Friday. Nothing too alarming, but as long as it holds at this point, as long as it holds over that 458, which is the prior all-time high, Dow still remains pretty good. Like I said previously, we've been watching to make sure it doesn't break below 450. She never did that. She held and she bounced back, and now you're getting rewarded for that, breaking out into all-time highs. Still looking at some targets of about 463, 465, and then ultimately 470. Overall, pretty darn solid stuff here for the Dow. Just needs to make sure you don't break back below 458. And other than that, you're looking pretty good. Looking here at the 30-minute chart, we can see that, yeah, the price has broken back down into the cloud. But other than that, that just suggests that, okay, smaller time frame momentum has stalled out. Like I said, we did get some of that rotation out of the Dow components, out of some of these industrials and builders, etc. And financials really, after financials had a big move, we saw some of that rotation out of those names into some of the tech names. So that's all that is telling us right here. And then, of course, the IWM also had some of that rotation. The IWM continues to pretty much stair step up. Structure remains good. Momentum remains pretty good. Sure, that short-term momentum did stall out on Friday. Again, you had that inside day on Friday. Nothing too crazy here. Nothing's really broken. We can confirm that on the 30-minute. Looks good. Hourly definitely looks good. 4 hour, of course, looks great. So yeah, maybe a little bit of a stall on these smaller time frames, but that's all it is. Just possible digestion. The overall bullish regime is definitely intact across all the main ETFs, the SPY, the Dow, the QQQ, and the IWM. Risk on does still seem to be the theme of the market. Maybe some narrowing recently with some of that rotation going on, but for the most part, looking good heading into FOMC. Now, when it comes to the FOMC and technical analysis, sure, some of this stuff can be pretty much thrown out the window, so play your levels, no doubt about that. Trend is your friend until it isn't. For now, trend is still mostly bullish, with some of the smaller time frames showing some signs of weakness. SPY and QQQ are definitely your solid players this go around. Remember last week it was mainly focused on the Dow and the IWM. Now it's mostly the SPY and the QQQ. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and look at our main sectors here. Let me pull up my notes real quick. Now, when it comes to the sectors, there's still some pretty solid bright spots. The XLB, we still need over 93. Once you get over 93, it introduces the move towards 95. It's neutral, but it's bullishly neutral. We can turn on the cloud here and you'll see what I'm talking about. You see how the cloud is trending up, left to right, but it is a little bit flat. It doesn't have that extreme up tilt to it. So that's the main thing that we're kind of watching here as far as the XLB. But for the most part, she looks pretty good. Just needs over 93. Communications is definitely one of the strongest sectors out there. Google has been in its own world since really the dividend. I mean, even after that, we had earnings back here. I mean, Google just looks crazy strong, continues to push towards that 250 mark. And yeah, Meta is another name that I'm going to be watching this week. Continues to hold 745. If you start to lose 745, there is a gap to fill down below towards 737. However, on the upside, if we start to break above 767, that does introduce a little bit of a gap fill towards 783. So I'm liking the way that Meta is holding up. And then when we start to get into some of these like bigger sectors that are more relevant into the Dow, industrials relatively quiet. Nothing too crazy going on, at least. Still needs to get above 155 to make new pushes into all-time highs. Financials have been solid across the board. We'll see how the financials respond to the FOMC and Jerome Powell. But I mean, when you look at names such as JP Morgan, strong, Goldman pushing out into new all-time highs. You even have names like Bank of America, not necessarily all-time highs, but multi-year highs over 50.92. Could round up to 51 if you like that. But yeah, Bank of America continues to look good. Citigroup continues to be impressive. Morgan Stanley, we were long this, hit our targets, we got out. Now the rest is history. Morgan Stanley continues to be impressive also. I mean, financial names, there's not really any strong signs of weakness. Citigroup, like I said, looks pretty good. UBS is also pretty solid. So yeah, financial names, a strong sector to be in right now, and until it's not. Like I said, trend is your trend until it's not. When it comes to the XLK, nice little gap up, kind of stalling out, but for the most part, looking good. Apple has had a decent bounce back. If it gets back over this 236, I might be interested. I went long on Apple not too long ago, was able to get 20%, and then I got stopped out. And then that was before the Apple event. And then we had that Apple event, and she just got absolutely clapped on that. And now it's getting that bounce back. So we'll see if Apple sets back up. Again, I like it back above 236. If we can get back above 236, I'm interested to see if we can get that play towards 247. But yeah, it's just one of those things there. NVIDIA is interesting. I mean, semiconductors itself has been kind of quiet. It is a strong sector, of course, with the whole AI trade. Of course, you all know about that. We had some pretty strong moves from Broadcom off of its earnings. You got, LRCX, Lam Research. That looks pretty solid. I think you had strong moves off of some of these cloud names. Adobe, Oracle. Oracle is the one that I'm thinking about. Crazy gap up on what I think they had a double miss, I'm not mistaken. Crazy gap up, and now you're just kind of fading into the gap. I don't want to chase this. I just kind of want to see where it sets back up. Let the crazies kind of sort through that mess before I even try to do anything with it. But yeah, semiconductors. My bad, I went on a little tangent there. Semiconductors continue to look pretty good. AMD is a little interesting. If we draw this out here, let me find my right drawing tool because I am blind as a bat. There it is. All right, so we could go from here maybe to here, and then let's go. You got this interesting wedge. It might be a little bit. You might have a little longer term on the week. Anyway, on the daily at least, you got a little bit of a wedge here. Let me remove this line. There you go. You see it a little bit better. If we start to get this breakout, especially over like 160, 161, that could introduce higher prices towards like 165. This would definitely be a little bit like a momentum play for me. I don't mind that at all. I don't hate it. AMD's been relatively quiet as of late, but nonetheless still setting up. And then moving on, XLP sideways, nothing too crazy there. XLY continues to be impressive. I mean, last week, this was on our weekly watch list last week, and look what happened. Tesla just absolutely pushed over 355, hit our target of 367. Huge follow through move, and yeah, I mean, this looks pretty good. If we put in our let's see, I did have the volume profile here. Yeah, I mean, look at this volume profile. You see how you had this uh, big section here as your, let me change that color there. You had this big section here that was pretty much our trampoline and base support. And as soon as we started to move through this, this just acted as a launch pad, and up you go. Now, as you can see, it's kind of thinned out up here. So I imagine that we could possibly see something towards like 420. 400 is going to be your psychological battle for sure. Once you get over 400, I think that introduces 420. And from there, you know, once Tesla gets going, we know Tesla can get going. So looking good. We'll see if we can continue to get some follow through move. If we start to see some sort of pullback on Tesla, what you want to see is you pretty much want to see a retest of 368, and then from 368, yeah, let's see if we can get a bounce from there to push towards that 420 mark. So that's all I'm going to say about that. So yeah, Tesla again looks pretty good. Utilities, not bad, not bad. Needs over really this 85 mark. You got this nice little trend line here that's drawn out for you. Once you get over that 85, 86 zone, could make things interesting towards new all-time highs for the utilities. Healthcare names, you know, we did wonder last week if we could see some of that rotation back into the XLV. We pretty much had that. Now we are getting a retest of this in this head and shoulders pattern. You know, here's your neckline. We came back up to it, started to reject, but then we pushed through it. Let's see if it can hold that neckline and push back up through there. You can see that it's still got some resistance up above, but once you get through that, yeah, we could be pushing towards like 142, 143, and so on. But we want to see this neckline hold off of that head and shoulders pattern. If we start to break further back down, especially below the 130s, is not a good look there for healthcare names. United Healthcare has been pushing up as of recently, started to fill some of this gap here. 377 will be your gap fill. So looking good there. And then as far as one of my favorites, and that is Johnson & Johnson, needs to break out over 179. Over 179, we're looking for a push towards 181. My next favorite, Lowe's, over 273, looking for 276. We already talked about Meta. But for the most part, yeah, it's all about the FOMC. Like I said, we do got some interesting earnings this week, mainly from FedEx and Lennar. Those are going to be, the ones that I'm going to be paying attention to the most. I know Bullish is, a retail big name there, so could be an interesting one there. But for the most part, I'm looking for FedEx and Lennar earnings for this week. But again, it's all about the FOMC on Wednesday. I cannot stress that enough. Again, we are expecting a 25 basis point rate cut. And yeah, pay attention, be aware of what's going on within the markets. Have a good trading week. Tell someone you love them. Trade smart, be good, and I will see you in the next one. Take care, guys.